If you have any question, if you need any help, you can always reach out to CAOGC or to Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce, and we will be providing the contact numbers at the very end of this meeting. Now, I don't want to prolong further. I am so pleased and honored to have our Treasurer Fredericks, Illinois Treasurer Fredericks, joining us in a very short notice, and that shows his concern for our community and the business community in general. So I just want to give a quick, brief introduction of Treasurer Fredericks. And Treasurer Fredericks was born and raised in the small downstate farming community of Gifford, Illinois. He graduated from Yale University and spent 2 years in Taiwan, where he taught English. Michael Fredericks was first elected Illinois State Treasurer in November 4, 2014, and re-elected on November 6, 2018. In Illinois, the Treasurer is the state's chief investment and banking officer. The office invests money on behalf of the state and local units of government. Fredericks also believes in providing individuals with the tools so that they can invest in themselves. The Treasurer's office actively manages approximately $31 billion, and the investment returns are significant. For every dollar spent to run the office, Fredericks nets $42 for the state's residents. Treasurer Fredericks resides in Champaign with his young daughter, Ella. Thank you so much, first of all, Treasurer Fredericks, for joining our call. I know it's Easter Day, and still you found time to join us, and we truly, truly appreciate. On behalf of CAOGC and the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you. Just before you start, we expect you to talk definitely about the programs offered by the state of Illinois to the small business community, and you could talk as much as you like. 5 to 10 minutes is what we have allocated, and then after that, if you have a few minutes to take any questions, we would be glad. We would be honored, like if you can answer those as well. Now, those who are listening to State Treasurer, if you have any questions specific, paycheck protection plan questions, you should post it later. But any questions specific to Illinois and specific to Treasurer, please post those questions. Please write those questions in the chat window, and one of us will be reading those for you. And then we'll let State Treasurer answer it if he has some time to answer those. With that, let me welcome State Treasurer Michael Fredericks to take on the mic.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me today. Pleasure to join you. I know it's a Sunday, it's a holiday, but we are in unusual times right now. We're at times that I think people could not imagine 3 months ago or more. And the reason I'm on here is I'm the state's chief investment officer and chief banking officer, but we have a responsibility to do everything we can in our power to help the business community in this state. And most specifically, I think as a state treasurer, I have greater ability to help the small businesses in our state. So I want to thank the organizers of this for trying to help out businesses in the state to make sure they have the information they need. There are a lot of new programs out there. I think the biggest one is the Payroll Protection Program, and we'll have people on this call who will answer those questions. I am not an expert in that field, but I will attempt to answer questions about the state of Illinois' contributions. I will tell you that we created this program to complement whatever the federal government did, not to be in competition with. So the program I talked to you about this morning could be something you could access, and the federal government stimulus money as well. So you all know how COVID-19 has affected our economy, has affected your businesses. It first hit our restaurants when they were forced to close down, but very quickly it became clear as travel advisories were put in place and stay-at-home orders, it affected our hotel and lodging association, and the effects have spread throughout our economy, especially as you've seen people traveling out less. There's been less advertising on our media. It's had effects there and through all parts of our economy. And I would say as soon as the governor initiated his shutdown initiative for restaurants, we in the Treasurer's Office asked the question, what can we do to help? Because we very much know that it is easier to ramp up a struggling business than it is to restart a shuttered business. We don't want businesses closing down We want to be able to help them get through this tough time. We want to help build a bridge for those businesses that were profitable before and likely will be profitable after we get through this. But they're going over some stormy waters right now, and our hope is that our small business COVID-19 relief loan program is something that's going to help get them through. So I want to talk a little bit about our loan program, some of the details, and then hopefully answer some questions you may have about it. So first off, this is an impact investment loan program. This is something we have done before. It's when we make loans at financial institutions with the attempt of having an impact on some segment of our economy. And we've been doing this for more than 30 years in the agriculture industry. We have a program called Ag Invest that has made more than $2 billion in loans over the lifetime of this program. And the way it works is by working with community banks and credit unions. So I am the state's chief banker, but I don't run a state bank. So no one can come to the treasurer's office and apply directly for a loan. We don't need to be in competition with community banks and credit unions. We find we can partner with them. They already have loan officers. They have lending relationships. They have the infrastructure in place. We help them out with access to capital. So the state treasurer has made up to $250 million in deposits available to financial institutions throughout the state of Illinois. That's about $250 million at a near zero interest rate deposit. The idea is to assist Illinois small businesses and nonprofits negatively affected by COVID-19 pandemic. And the purpose of this funding, as I said, is to provide the economic support to small businesses and nonprofits throughout Illinois to help overcome the loss of revenue they're currently experiencing. Through this program, my office partners with approved financial institutions to provide loans. Now, we have some institutions that are already approved, but the approval process is not that difficult. If you have a relationship with a bank right now and they're not currently approved, in most cases, it shouldn't take them longer than 24 to 48 hours to gain approval and be able to start making these loans. So we hope that they issue these loans at either lower interest rates, because we are offering them at near zero interest rates, or they offer loans to businesses or a nonprofit that would not otherwise qualify. The Illinois small businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So let me give you a few details here before I open up for questions. State funds are deposited with qualified financial institutions for a 1-year term at a near zero rate of deposit. That is 0.01% or 0.0001 is the interest rate, very close to zero. Deposited funds facilitate affordable loans that can't exceed 4 3/4% to small businesses and nonprofits that could be used to provide bridge funding. It could be used to pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, or other bills. Deposits can be drawn from financial institutions in $1 million or $5 million increments. They can apply up for a maximum of $25 million per financial institution, but we're making them draw it down in $1 million or $5 million increments because we want to make sure and monitor the money is actually going out to Illinois businesses. We don't want to park this money into a bank and have it sit in that financial institution. Eligible Illinois businesses and nonprofits must meet 3 criteria. The first one, it has to have been shut down or limited due to COVID-19. Now, that is fairly broadly applied to businesses in the state of Illinois. As I said, the original idea was to help those restaurants who were forced to shut down, but as we've seen this contagion grow and spread throughout our economy, we have increased the number of businesses that can access these loans. Now, they have to be small businesses. We're not looking at large corporate bailouts here. You have to have less than $1 million in liquid assets or $8 million average annual receipts. These are according to SBA standards. And I think most importantly, you have to be headquartered in the state of Illinois or agree to use the funds in Illinois. We realize this pandemic has not just affected our state, it's affected Indiana, it's affected Wisconsin, but as the Illinois State Treasurer, I am most concerned with Illinois businesses and Illinois citizens. Now, deposits can be renewed or determined by the Treasurer's office. Financial institutions will be required to provide reports to the Treasurer's office regarding the usage of program funds, including the number and types of loans provided to small businesses and nonprofits, and the economic impact of such loans. We tried to make sure those reports are not cumbersome. We've heard some complaints from the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, that the paperwork and the hoops they have to jump through are a bit onerous. We tried to keep ours relatively easy. We knew when we were looking at doing this, the federal government was going to do something, but because of partisan gridlock in DC, we thought it might take a while. And just because rolling out the machinery also takes a while when you're dealing with such a large government, we in the Treasurer's Office can be more nimble. We can act more quickly. We're close to the ground, and we can get something up and running for those businesses that are really struggling before a federal program was available to them. Reminder, this program works with participating financial institutions. Loans are not made directly between the Treasurer's Office and businesses. But you can find information about this, including some of the financial institutions that have signed up. It's not an exhaustive list. Some of them on illinoistreasurer.gov, and you can click on our Small Business COVID-19 Relief Fund. Now, I'll tell you that not every business or not every banking institution is listed. When our initial list went up, we had one institution in the Chicagoland area listed, and they were inundated with calls. The bank could not handle the volume coming in, and they called us up and said, can you take our name down? We're still participating, but we can't handle all these new customers right now. And can you put us back up when you have some other Chicago area institutions up with us? So I have not checked our website yet this morning, but I know that we have a couple of the Chicagoland businesses available, and those should be up there soon. So just a brief tutorial how this works, and I'll open up the questions. So our impact investment deposits are placed with the participating financial institution based on application request. We've done this before with Ag Invest, our Business Invest program, and our Community Invest. Now, the financial institution disperses low-cost funds to qualified borrowers for use in the program application request. So approval process goes through the banks and credit unions, not through our office. But we, in offering these low interest, make sure that they are not being overly restrictive. So the borrower pays the financial institution either a below market rate or a market rate for a loan the borrower would not otherwise qualify for the use of funds based on the program parameters. And then the financial institution pays the Treasurer's Office a monthly below market interest rate for the lending of the funds. So our hope is that this will be helpful to businesses in Illinois who are struggling to keep their heads above water, to help build that bridge to the time we get back to a new normal. Once again, this is not something that is in competition with the governor's office loan programs in DCEO or the federal government SBA loans, the Payroll Protection Program loans. Whether it's which loan is best for you or if it's a combination is up to you to decide, and hopefully this Muslim Chamber of Commerce is providing you with the information you need to make those decisions. With that, I do want to open up to questions you have about Illinois' program. I know that there are lots of questions about the federal program because I've been taking lots of them. I'll remind you that I am not an expert on that. I'm learning about this as many of you are as we go along. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll attempt to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you for that good summary and what the governor and the state of Illinois and you and the Treasurer's Office are doing for the everyday business person and nonprofits here in Illinois. One question that has come up, and I'm understanding that your rate, the rate that is going to be charged by the bank still has the discretion to determine what that rate is, or is there any kind of limitations in the actual program? Is there a ceiling?
That is correct. There is a ceiling. 4.75% is the highest they can offer. If the bank wants to charge something higher, they're welcome to, just not with our money. Our hope, though, is they offer interest rates lower than that. We know that these financial institutions need to make money as well, like your businesses, and they need to charge some interest rate, but by offering it to them that low, our hope is that they'll be offering closer in the range of 2.5%, 3.5%. We put that cap in place.
Is there any provision in this loan program for any forgiveness of the principal or forgiveness of interest, like similar
No,
to
that
what
is
we have with the federal program?
yeah, that is a big difference. And it's why I said for many of these businesses, if they qualify for the PPP and they're using it for payroll and maintaining employees on, those loans will be forgiven. Those are far better than ours. Even at a zero rate interest rate, we can't compete with that kind of loan forgiveness. So the Treasurer's Office program has two sort of purposes. For those who can't qualify for the SBA loans or for various reasons don't meet that, they can apply for ours. We can tell you the financial institutions out there have had great requests under the SBA or PPP program. And in some cases, we're helping to collateralize those banks. So even though you may not see it directly from us, it's possible that our $250 million being put into banks will then be in turn used to make more SBA loans available. But no, to be clear, there is no loan forgiveness along with our program.
Thank you. Another question goes to the scope of applicants. Who is qualified? So to the extent that someone is self-employed or is in a particular type of business, one question is if they're in the transportation business, does this impact or is this clearly the relying on the lending guidelines of the particular financial institution you're going to apply to?
Well, it's a combination. So you do have to get approval from the financial institution, have to meet their criteria, but we give criteria that they have to be negatively impacted by coronavirus. If the shipping company, transportation company is taking groceries to grocery stores, my guess is they still are doing a brisk business. If their transportation were to restaurants or to university dormitories, they most certainly would be affected. If they're hauling building supplies and programs have been shut down, building programs have been shut down because of coronavirus, they would be impacted. We try to set some guidelines out there so that our money is used to help those most affected by COVID-19. That being said, we don't want to create a program that is so restrictive that we are burdening people with paperwork or that we are limiting businesses because of arbitrary definitions. So we have an investment policy committee. If there is a business on here that does not meet a requirement according to the bank, but has seen a significant decrease in their business, I'd ask them to reach out to our office and see if perhaps we could relax some of the guidelines to allow them to participate.
The link that you displayed on the graphic earlier, does that have any information as to what the guidelines a particular business would have to meet to qualify for the loan? I'm independent of credit issues and history and credit worthiness, but like I said, you spoke about being able to demonstrate that they've been negatively impacted by this pandemic. What is there a place where the people can identify those factors or would help them to put together their data to demonstrate that they are negatively impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, so we are deliberately keeping these somewhat vague. If they're negatively impacted and they can show this in a loss of revenue, I mean, if you're a business and you're effectively shut down because of the governor's order, clearly you qualify. But as I said, this has spread throughout the economy, affected a lot of businesses that aren't directly forced to be shut down. So you can demonstrate a decrease in revenues if you can make your case at lending institution. We tried not to set these guidelines in stone because we know there are a lot of different industries out there, a lot of different industries that are affected in different ways. And if you base it on revenue or if you base it on hours, some businesses may not meet certain requirements, but they still have been affected. So the answer is no, there aren't specific guidelines out there. But if a financial institution says they're not impacted and a business on this call says we will certainly have, we'd be willing to talk to you and then to talk with that institution and let them know that it would meet our requirements.
Are there any, another question from the group, are there any programs in the state of Illinois that the state of Illinois is offering that mirrors what the federal government is doing in terms of loan forgiveness or forgiveness of interest on loans? Grants?
Well, let me run through a few of them. These aren't programs in my office. I know a little something about them. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity has 3 different programs out there. Some which may not affect your members. I don't know how broadly you go. There is a downstate small business stabilization program. That's for grants up to $25,000 for downstate firms with fewer than 50 employees using CDBG funds. My guess is most of your members are not in downstate. There is an Illinois Small Business Emergency Loan Fund that provides a $60 million loan program for small businesses. The business apply for funding directly with Acción. And that is a 3% interest rate with loans up to $50,000 and payment deferred for 6 months. Chicago has a Chicago Small Business Resiliency Loan Program. It's a partnership between the city of Chicago and specific lenders to make small business loans. Cook County has a Cook County Recovery Initiative. The Cook County Bureau of Economic Development provides one-time loans to small businesses and independent contractors administered by the Chicago Community Loan Fund. They apply at partner community financial institutions, and that's for small business with fewer than 25 employees. So this information is available out there in addition to the federal government programs, and I think that hopefully those units of government, the city, the county, and the state, should have more detailed information on their websites. I said, yeah. I don't run those programs. I just know that there are things out there, and they're meant to complement each other.
All right, let me ask you one final question before you leave, and if I may, in terms of, because based on the flow of questions from our participants, there is this perception that the loan program is based on wages or employees. Am I correct, or are we correct in assuming that the scope of this loan program can apply to any aspect of their business? If they're looking for it in terms of to replenish inventory, repair equipment, or whatever, would that be the scope of it not being restricted to just maintaining people on the payroll?
Correct. And the same thing with the federal program, but for the loan forgiveness, the federal program, it's I think tied to payroll. But ours can be used for rent, for other bills, for employment. We don't factor it based on employment. The only factors you have to be a small business, and we use there are liquid assets, a measure for liquid assets, or $8 million or less in annual gross receipts. So I think ours is probably a little more flexible than the federal program, although theirs is more generous if you're using it for payroll.
Well, we thank you for State Treasurer for taking this time to be with us this morning. And we appreciate the efforts that you and the governor and the state administration is doing to help all of the residents of Illinois, not just small businesses. And you have our endorsement and support. And in any way we as the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce or the Council of Islamic Organization can contribute to the effort made by the state, we stand ready and able. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much for the work you do helping your members. Thank you for the invitation to talk to you about our programs. Our hope is this will provide some relief to someone on this call. Thank you for all your work.
All righty. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. At this particular point in time, we've benefited from the input from our state treasurer, and now, inshallah, we will resume with a discussion, and many of your questions that were asked on the chat do relate to the actual topic of what we're here today about. In addition, is the payroll protection plan. So at this point in time, the screen and the mic is turned over to Fabrice Ahmed, the presenter. Fabrice.
All right, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Brother Abdullah Mitchell. Can you go ahead and see my screen and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So again, thanks for everyone joining. What I'd like to go ahead and go over here, hopefully in the next 1 hour, is primarily take as many of your questions as we can and answer them. We'll go ahead and start out first. Again, I know in the chat box, I've seen this message several times. If you are joined and you see your name as Shafiq Abu Bakr, please just go and click on the 3 dots within your computer and rename it to your real name, so that way we can go ahead and address your questions properly so we know who's actually speaking, because there's about 20 plus, maybe 30 plus Shafiq Abu Bakrs on this meeting. Second, again, as Brother Abdullah Mitchell said, they put out a disclaimer from the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce as well as the CIOGC. I'll put out a similar. Is again, anything that I'm giving today, it's not legal advice, it's not tax advice, it's not the final word on today's topic, because the tax laws have been changing. We're not giving out any political opinions. As always, please contact your accountant or your attorney before making any financial decisions based on this information. So as of this morning, we had approximately 64 registered. Now, alhamdulillah, I believe we have almost 90 plus, 91. And in terms of the stats, again, we asked the questions of where do majority of you bank. Surprisingly, we actually have more community banks than we do of the large financial institutions, right? I just want to kind of put out where a lot of our members and you guys are banking, right? In terms of the community bank, we have people at First Midwest, Cornerstone Bank, Devon Bank, First American Bank, Huntington Bank, Oxford Bank, and First Nations Bank. Of course, we have the large institutions as well, which is Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, Fifth Third, PNC, and US Bank. So hopefully I'll try to touch base on stuff related to those banks should I know anything about them. So first I want to kind of talk about, because there are still some of us that are not aware of what is the PPP, right? So I'd like to go ahead and first touch base on what is the PPP, right? So the PPP, oh, let's close out this screen. All right, so the PPP loan is an SBA loan that can be forgiven, right? It can be forgiven. Give me 1 second, sorry. Just having some technical difficulties here. My apologies. All right. Can you guys see my presentation again, Brother Abdullah?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So what is this paycheck protection loan that everyone's been talking about, right? It is a loan that has been guaranteed by the SBA and the U.S. Treasury, and it can be forgiven on 100% basis, right? As long as you apply for it before June 30th. Right? Now, you don't need to establish any credit worthiness, right? You don't need any collateral. There's no prepayment penalties should you go ahead and choose to prepay it. There's no loan application fees or personal guarantees that's required, right? And the loan repayment is going to be 24 months with an interest rate of less than 1%, right? And for the first 6 to 12 months, they're saying that there's no payments that are required. So that is called, again, today I'll kind of keep referencing PPP, which is basically the Paycheck Protection Plan or loans, right? So how much can you apply for, right? So it is basically the lesser of $10 million, or for 99% of us here, it is the average monthly payroll cost for 1 year from the loan date. Right? So now a lot of banks are using the 2019 payroll information, right? Now, only W-2 employees count, right? If you have any 1099 contractors that you pay, that does not qualify as payroll costs, right? Earlier on in the conversations, about maybe a week, even 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of confusion in regards with what the SBA and the U.S. Treasury had put out. But as of this past Monday evening, they have 100% clarified that the 1099 contractors do not count in your payroll cost, right? So again, in terms of an example at the bottom of your screen, so let's say you have a car wash, right? In our example, it's Rob's Car Wash is applying for a paycheck protection loan, right? If his payroll cost annually is $120,000, you take your annualized payroll cost, divide it by 12, which is $10,000, multiply it by 2.5. So Rob's Car Wash is entitled to $25,000 or $10 million, right? So he's going to get $25,000 of payroll costs that he can go ahead and apply for the paycheck protection loan, right? So now that you know how much you can apply for, how do you apply, right? So you got to go online to your financial institution's website, right? You cannot apply for the paycheck protection loan directly with the SBA. You have to go to your bank, right? Now, most banks are requiring that you be an existing customer of theirs, right? So if you are an existing customer, like for example, Chase is saying you have to be an existing customer before February 15th. Bank of America, same thing, right? Again, just go ahead and count W-2 employees. Do not include your 1099 contractors when you're applying, right? So now, how much can I go ahead and get forgiven? How do I get it forgiven, right? You can go ahead and get it forgiven as long as you use that $25,000 in our example for Rob's Car Wash. You use it within the first 8 weeks, right? So again, remember, you have to use this money within the first 8 weeks on the following items: payroll cost, group health insurance benefits. You can go ahead and pay interest on any mortgage application, right? As long as you had that mortgage before February 15th of 2020. You can use it to pay your rent. You can use it to pay your utilities, right? Now, again, as long as you know, again, of the $25,000 in our example.
Otherwise, we can meet.
Can someone please mute themselves out? Thank you. Again, so how much can be forgiven? 100% can be forgiven as long as you use it. But of that 100%, 75% has to be used on payroll, right? So you cannot use the entire $25,000 in my example on rent and utilities, right? You can only use 25% on rent, utilities, and interest, right? And 75% has to be used on payroll cost. So that's, in a nutshell, what PPP is and how you apply for it and how do you get it forgiven, right? Now, for those that had pre-registered, we'd ask you to go ahead and submit your questions. So I've attempted to go ahead and pre-answer those questions on the screen, right? So some of the questions that we've already received is, when will I get these funds, right? What's the timeline? Unfortunately, I do not know, right? Every bank is doing it differently, right? Banks are saying hopefully within the next week or two, but we have no idea. Again, for those that are typing questions in the chat box, I request you to go ahead and please rename yourself from Shafiq Abu Bakr to your name so we can go ahead and respond to your question properly by addressing it to your name, right? So a lot of people have asked, when am I going to get these funds? What's the timelines, right? Unfortunately, hopefully within the next week or two, that's what some of the banks have said in terms of the larger banks, right? But reach out to your lender if you know someone personally. Like for example, Chase Bank has said, don't reach out to anyone. We'll go ahead and contact you, right? Now, at some of the community banks that I've worked with or where I have clients, right, they're saying hopefully within the next week or two, right? Now, what documents do you need to give to your bank when you apply? Make sure you have all of your payroll records. If you don't have it, reach out to your accountant and request it, right? You'll need your payroll tax returns, which are the forms 941, form 940, and form W3, right? You're going to need your business and personal tax returns. If your 2019 tax returns are not done, right, just use your 2018 tax returns, right? A big question has been, will the interest be forgiven or only the principal? Both will be forgiven if your qualifications are met, right? Again, both the interest and the principal. In my example, I'll kind of keep referring back to that $25,000 for Rob's car wash, right? If he uses 75% to pay his payroll and the other 25% on rent, utilities, and other items that meet the qualifications, he has to pay $0 in principal or interest, right? The banks will get their interest and their payments directly from the federal government, right? Now, a lot of people have asked this question. Well, we don't have any employees on W-2. They're all 1099 contractors. What do we do, right? Well, unfortunately, you don't qualify for the PPP, right? Apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. I'll touch base on that a little bit shortly, right? Or your contractors, the individuals that you give 1099s to, they can apply for the PPP, right? They, as the individual, because they're considered to be self-employed, can apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan, right? Or as our Illinois Treasurer just mentioned, apply for the Illinois Business Small Relief, right? Now, some have asked, well, hey, we've already applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Can we also apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan? Yes, you can have both loans at the same time as long as they are used for different purposes, right? For example, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan can be used for all working capital expenses, right? But note, none of that is forgiven. It is 100% loan, right? It's an interest-based loan with less than 1% interest, or actually I think 3.75 for businesses and 2.75 for non-for-profits, right? But it is an interest-bearing loan and 0% is forgiven, right? Now, several people may have multiple businesses. Can you apply for each one of your businesses? Yes. Each business can apply separately for the Paycheck Protection Loan, assuming that they have W-2 employees on them, right? Now, what happens if you own an S-Corp or a partnership with one or two partners, right? And you did not take payroll on W-2, what happens then? Again, unfortunately, the Paycheck Protection Loan, according to the letter of the law, does not qualify for you, right? But the owners or the partners of that company can apply for the Paycheck Protection Loans, right? Or apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan for your business, right? Now, what happens if you didn't have employees in 2019, but you just opened up your business in 2020, right? Or you hired your first employee in 2020. Can you qualify? Yes, you can still qualify, right? Just use your average payroll for the months that you've had payroll and submit it, right? So I've talked about this EIDL. So what is this EIDL, right? Because some people have asked that in the registration forms as well, right? It is a separate loan from the Paycheck Protection Loan, right? EIDL stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It is a loan. None of it is forgiven, right? Unless your application is denied, right? You have to apply for it directly with the SBA on their website. Just go to sba.gov and you can apply for it, right? It can be used for any of your working capital expenses, right? And you do not need to have any employees, right? When the Economic Injury Disaster Loan was approved, right, as part of the FFCRA Act and the CARES Act, they said that you will go ahead and get up to $2 million. But because of the sheer number of applicants that have applied for it, now the SBA is saying we're going to go ahead and limit it to $15,000 per applicant, right? But apply, doesn't hurt, right? Now, some of you have mentioned that your bank is not accepting any more applications. What do you do, right? Especially Wells Fargo has come out and said last week, within 24 hours, they said we're going to go ahead and stop taking applications because they've run out of the money that they were allocated. Contact the local community bank, right? From my experience, the local community banks that I mentioned up top are willing to work with you, even if you're not a customer of theirs, right? If they feel that there's potential of you becoming a customer of theirs and that they can go ahead and leverage other businesses from you in the future, they might be willing to help you. I guarantee you, most probably Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, right, Fifth Third, they won't take you at all. So try a local community bank, right? Or if you run QuickBooks, right, QuickBooks Online in particular, and you run payroll through it, Intuit was approved by the SBA to go ahead and process the Paycheck Protection loans last week, actually earlier this week, right? Or there are the fintech companies that have been approved. Two that have been very common in the news right now is Fundera.com and Lendio.com, right? You can go to those two websites. All right. Can non-for-profits apply? Yes. Even masajids, even 501c3s can apply as long as you have employees for the Paycheck Protection loan, right? You need to have W-2 employees, right? So we've received, I'm going to real quickly jump to the stimulus and rebate payment, which will apply to almost all of us that are individuals, because there were some questions in the registrations, right? This is a completely separate program from the Paycheck Protection loan. Every U.S. citizen and green card holder is going to receive a rebate if you qualify, meeting certain thresholds of your income, right? So I'll quickly go over that, then I'll start taking questions from the chat box, right? So in terms of the rebate, right, a lot of people as individuals are asking, how much are you going to receive, right? This is free money, has nothing to do with your business, right? This is based on your individual income, right? If you're a single person and your adjusted gross income on your tax returns is between 75 to 100,000, you're going to go ahead and get $1,200, right? Or if you're a head of household and your income is between 112,000 to 136, you're going to get $1,200. Right? If you're a married individual and your income is less than 150 to 198, you're going to get $2,400. And if you have any children under the age of 17 that you claim as dependents, then you're going to go ahead and get an additional $500 for each child, right? The payments are supposed to be going out this coming week. If you have an elderly parent, or if you have no income and you have not filed a tax return for 2018 and 2019, you can go to irs.gov and just put in your information saying that you are not required to file a tax return, and then they will go ahead and establish you and qualify you to go ahead and get the rebate, right? Or if you owed money on your previous year's tax return, or you got a paper check, but now you want the rebate to be direct deposited, go to irs.gov and put in your direct deposit information for the rebate. Again, this rebate has nothing to do with businesses, right? This is strictly for all individuals, right? There's no correlation between this and the Paycheck Protection Plan or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan or any other loan. The rebates is completely separate, that the U.S. government has approved as part of the stimulus package for individuals. That's all the questions that I had received on the Paycheck Protection Loan and the rebate. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just start going up to the chat box. Again, as I'm going through these questions, I urge and request all of you, if your name says Shafiq Abu Bakr, please just go in there and rename yourself to the properly. Right? So we have Nishat Alvi. Dr. Nishat, should a company apply for all of these applications? Which of those are forgiven? Right? Only the Paycheck Protection loan is forgiven. Right? None of the other loans are forgiven. In regards with what the Economic Injury Disaster Loan or what the Illinois Treasurer spoke about, those are not forgiven. Right? Can you apply for the EIDL and PPP? Yes, you can. Right? My question is regards with landlords and rent. Some of my tenants have lost their jobs and have been furloughed, which leads to an inability to pay rent. Can any of these programs help pay for that? The Economic Injury Disaster Loan will help pay for your loans, right? Or if you don't have employees, you don't qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan. I'll keep reiterating that. Unless you have, now you might be able to go ahead and apply if you have an LLC and you're paying yourself some type of management fee. you might be able to go ahead and qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan, right? Or what you can also go ahead and do is contact your bank and let them know, right? A lot of banks are allowing borrowers to also give them forgiveness in terms of not forgiving the loan, but in terms of forbearance and not allowing you to pay your mortgage for 3 months. So you can contact your bank and ask them to go ahead and give you a break on your loan payments. The next question, my question is about independent contractors who do not run payroll for themselves, but a significant drop in their income. What help is provided for us from the feds? If there is any aid available, will it be forgiven option? If you are an independent contractor, then you are considered self-employed. Apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan with your Schedule C and your personal tax return and copies of your 1099, right? That is forgiven, right? How much is forgiven? Dr. Omer, I've answered that. 75% if you use it for payroll and 25% on the rest, then 100% is forgiven. What is covered in payroll costs or taxes included? Payroll cost is, they are saying all of your payroll costs, which is your gross payroll, and your state taxes, employer taxes, right? The Social Security and Medicare is not, because that can be forgiven through the other programs that the government has. Please reach out to your accountant. Dr. Omer, you answered it. Thank you. How come they ask for rent and utilities and to include all that in the loan as well as information? They want us to add that up plus payroll? No, only, again, the banks are asking for you to go ahead and do an allocation of how much you're going to go ahead and use for rent and utilities, but that does not determine your loan amount. Only the rent and utilities can be used. 25% of your loan can be used, and unless you use 25% or less, it won't be forgiven. Is a fund to put in a separate account? Who keeps tracks of these funds? Banks, and we tell how they are used in the first 8 weeks. We are suggesting and recommending all of my clients, at least, to go ahead and open up a separate bank account to track these funds, right? Because that way it will be much easier to go ahead and prove what you used it on for, right? It is not a requirement. It is just a suggestion. Just check with your accountants. Ultimately, your accountant will have to go ahead and prove how these funds were used and the reports to go ahead and provide to the bank after 8 weeks, right? Can we get a copy of this presentation? Yes, we'll go ahead and mail it out afterwards. If we get the PPP funds, but our business is not fully operational due to the stay-at-home orders, are we supposed to pay employees in full and rehire them back in order to get the PPP loan forgiven? Yes, unless you go ahead and rehire your employees and pay them, you can't have it forgiven, right? None of the EIDL is forgivable. Yes, none of the EIDL is forgivable, right? Unless you get that advance on the loan and your loan is denied, right? So go ahead and make dua that when you apply for the EIDL that your application is denied. If it's denied, then whatever advance that they give you, it will be forgiven. Can you speak further about the Cook County and the state loans that were referenced in earlier? You know, and unfortunately, I'm not well versed on it. But when we send out the presentations, we can go ahead and include that information on the Cook County and the state loans. My apologies. Please adjust your name if it's, yeah. Again, as a reminder, if your name shows Shafiq Abu Bakr, please just go in and rename yourself to your proper name. So no one needs to apply for the stimulus and rebate program. That is correct. The stimulus and rebate program is directly based on your individual personal tax returns, right? It has nothing to do with your business. If you don't have a business, you still get the stimulus if you make less than $75,000 or $100,000, right? If you have a child that you claim as a dependent, you will get an additional $500, right? So if you have 2 children as married individuals making less than $150,000, you will get $3,400, $1,200 for you, $1,200 for your spouse, and $500 for each one of your children. So it's a total of $3,400. What if the W-2 employees get added on now? Would it qualify? I don't believe it's going to work now if you go ahead and add them now, unless you're a new business. But try it, right? Is the stimulus available to green card individuals or just citizens? It is available to both green card holders and U.S. citizens. If you have, the criteria is you need to have a valid social security number to qualify for the stimulus, right? I have a property rental business, no employees, my tenants are not paying rent. Am I eligible for the EIDL loan? Yes. How much interest do I have to pay? 3.75%. Go to the SBA website directly. How do you determine if unemployment is a better option versus PPP? It's a great question, right? So if you don't qualify for the PPP because you didn't have loans, look at unemployment, right? Right now, the state of Illinois, the federal mandate has been even self-employed individuals, if you got laid off or having a hardship and you're applying for unemployment due to the coronavirus, you get an additional $600 per week on top of your normal benefits, right? So it might be worthwhile that the unemployment benefits are greater than the PPP, right? So you just have to go ahead and work with your accountant to do the math, right? Thank you, you're welcome. Are elderly parents claimed as dependents on taxes? Will they receive the stimulus? No, if you claim a parent on your tax return, you do not get the $500 for them, nor your parents get the additional. So it might be worthwhile not to claim your parents this year, right? Again, reach out to your accountant. So the EIDL is no longer offering the 10K, which was lowered to 1K per employee loan that will be forgiven if used for qualifying expenses. The EIDL was never a forgivable loan, right? All they said was a 10K was they said they would go ahead and give up to $10,000 advance on the loan until your application was processed. And if your application was denied, then you can go ahead and keep the advance that they gave you. Now that $10,000 has been reduced to $1,000 per employee, right? So how does that affect? Again, your guess is as good as mine, unfortunately, right now, because they keep changing the rules of the game. From Junaid, I have a single member LLC. I have 4 employees. I don't file a separate tax return for my LLC. I fill out a Schedule C on my personal tax return. What about my profit after I pay my employees? Is that considered my payroll? Yes. Your profit on your Schedule C, which is your net income, is considered your payroll. Both interest and principal will be forgiven if qualifications are met. If qualification not met, then what happens? No loan given, you have to pay back the entire loan with interest. If, again, you get the loan, then you have 8 weeks to go ahead and use it on the funds that we've talked about, right? This is from Kasha. So if you go ahead and use it within the criteria that they've laid out, then it's 100% forgiven, which is 75% payroll, 25% rent, utilities, and mortgage interest, right? If you don't use it, then it gets converted to a loan and you have 2 years to pay it back with a 0.9% interest rate, right? Zubair Asmi, I have a rental property. Those are not in the LLC. Tenants have stopped paying, right? Can I get an EIDL grant? EIDL is not a grant, right? It's strictly a loan. Go ahead and apply. How can I claim expenses occurred due to coronavirus? Example, in my case, international armored shipping. You know, that's a complicated one. Again, you just go ahead and, in terms of your expenses, the expenses are just reported on your business tax return. There's no additional provision because of coronavirus expenses to our knowledge, but please reach out to your accountant. If you apply and get approved for the EIDL, but determine you don't want to take the fund, is that okay? Yes, if you get approved, you can go ahead and reject the loan. You do not have to take it. Does the PPP extend to individuals with work visa? Again, if they are on W-2s, then your business can qualify. I'm self-employed as of March of 2020. I have an LLC, however, no history or tax returns to reflect my 1099 status. Do I qualify? From Sister Samia, doesn't hurt, apply. I'm not sure if you're gonna go ahead and get it, but you gotta work with your bank. From another unnamed Shafiq Abu Bakr, if my hours are cut from full-time to part-time, can I apply for unemployment? Yes, you can apply for unemployment. Can I speak on the Cook County loans? Unfortunately, I cannot. I'm not well-versed in it. My apologies. Are there grants available for S-Corps? Again, the only grant that's available is Paycheck Protection Loan, right? If you have employees, or for S-Corps or any other business out there, you can go ahead and apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, right? If an employee income is high, greater than 100,000 and their hours were cut, what is the cap of unemployment that they can get? Again, they would have to go ahead and apply on the unemployment website, and before you submit your application, the state of Illinois is letting you know what your estimated benefits are. Does your K1 qualify as your W-2? It does not. W-2 is a W-2, K1 is a K1. The next question, is the 500 per child dependent on income too? Meaning you must qualify based on income threshold versus single married. That is correct. First, you have to qualify based on income, then you will go ahead and get it for 500 per child. Now, depending on the number of children you have, that threshold does go up a little bit. Again, you don't have to do anything on the stimulus rebate. You will get it automatically. From Azmat, can we reapply for PPP if you feel that you didn't give enough information? No, it is our suggestion that do not apply. Wait for your banks to reach out to you with whatever information that they need. Some of my employees are children under the age of 18. Will their salaries qualify for payroll? Part-time employees. Yes, it is our understanding that there is no criteria in terms of age for your employees. If someone can just mute themselves out, please. Can we increase people's salaries since they are paid hourly? Again, if you're increasing it, it depends on the reason, right? So again, just because you're increasing salary or you're increasing or creating payroll for the sole purpose of to apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan, that is not recommended, right? I would advise you not to go ahead and do that, but again, check with your accountant. If you are the owner and an employee, single employee, am I eligible? Yes, as long as you are a W-2 employee, you are eligible. It does not matter if you own the company. I believe I have gone through all of the questions in the chat box. If you have any questions, please go ahead and just continue to type them. Brother Abdullah, did I go ahead and miss any of the questions, or did any other questions come from another source that I'm not aware of?
One additional question. You mentioned earlier in the presentation about if you're a resident or a citizen, would it extend to those who have work visas? The payroll protection.
So the payroll protection, it is my understanding that if you have employees that are on work visas, then those employees get counted as part of your payroll cost, right? But if the employees are on work visas, do they qualify for the stimulus? I believe they do. The only ones that I believe are on H-1Bs, but don't quote me. Again, when it comes to the individual stimulus payments, there's nothing you can go ahead and do in terms of changing your status. If you qualify, the government will automatically send you the stimulus money, right? For in terms of Paycheck Protection Loan, yes, they do qualify. Question from Dr. Omar, will unemployment insurance tax rates increase if you furlough employees and make full-time employees into part-time or have them apply for unemployment benefits? Right now, it is our assumption, again, Dr. Omar, this is an assumption that the state of Illinois will not increase your unemployment rate. Within the accounting world and the AICPA, we have reached out to the state of Illinois, and at the national level, they have been reaching out to the individual states to go ahead and request them not to increase the unemployment rate because this is a pandemic, right? But at least from the state of Illinois' perspective, I can go ahead and tell you the state of Illinois has not addressed that issue, but it is our understanding and a hope that the unemployment rates will not go up. I don't see the banks in the state treasurer's website. Do you know any banks that qualify? I'm not sure what the question means. Please re-clarify, Azmat. Hafsa, can both company S Corp and the employee who receives W-2 apply for PPP, even if the employee is the owner of the S Corp? No. Again, employees cannot apply. If you are an employee that receives a W-2, you cannot apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan. Your company can. The only people that can apply for the Paycheck Protection Loans are companies that have W-2 employees or individuals that have 1099s, right? Do you have to put up collateral for the loans? No, there is no collateral that is required. My parents got Social Security check. Do they qualify? My parents got Social Security check. Do not file for taxes. Do you register them on irs.gov? If they receive Social Security checks, you do not need to do anything, right? Unless you want them to go ahead and get it via direct deposit, you can go onto the irs.gov and put in your parents' information on irs.gov for the stimulus payment, right? But if you have a parent that does not get Social Security and is not filing tax returns, then go in and input all of their information on the non-filers section of the irs.gov website. From Haitham Hasabullah, we have a W-2 employee who has been paid a lower amount because they are a part owner of the business. Now, with no money coming in from the business shutdown, can we increase their W-2 to account for that loss of ownership and then apply for the PPP? Again, I would not advise you do that. Again, it's strictly based on your normal payroll over the past 12 months. 1099-2, I thought 1099 contractors do not qualify. From Shahzad Latif, 1099 contractors can apply for the PPP as part of their individual. Right? 1099 contractors, you cannot add them as part of your payroll cost when you apply for the company. Do you recommend applying for unemployment? Again, it's a tough question. You'd have to go ahead and check with your accountant if you should apply for unemployment or apply for PPP to see which one's better. If you live in Illinois but work in Indiana, where do you apply unemployment? Look on your tax return or your W-2 to see where your company has been withholding the taxes for. Again, check with your accountant. What taxes are included in the PPP payroll cost allocations? It's your gross payroll plus we are stating to go ahead and include your employer payroll costs as well. I was laid off in Illinois, then moved to another state. Where do I apply for unemployment insurance? It is my suggestion that you should apply in Illinois. Someone asked earlier, if employees have resigned, how do you maintain forgiveness amount because number of employees have dropped? Can you answer that? Is forgiven based on the total dollar amount retained on payroll or number of employees? It is both, Dr. Alvi. It is based on the total dollar amount as well as the number of employees. Again, that's why they're suggesting if you have laid off employees or furloughed them, you should go ahead and hire them back if you want the amounts to be forgiven. If employees have resigned, do you maintain employee number for forgiveness or if there is any correlation? No, if they have resigned, then you got to reduce the number of employees that you have for the payroll protection. Is the stimulus rebate independent of taxes? Can it be filed with the taxes? It is independent of taxes in the sense that you'll automatically get it. If you don't get it, then your accountant or whoever does your taxes for 2020 can go ahead and get it for you when you do your 2020 tax returns. I don't see the $600 per week unemployment benefit on the IDS website. It is something not finalized. That is correct. Unfortunately, the state of Illinois has not implemented that yet. It has been a federal mandate, but for whatever reason, state of Illinois has not updated yet. That would have been a great question for the Illinois treasurer, but unfortunately, he's gone. Someone's recommending to please go on to the Illinois Muslim Chamber's Facebook and like their Facebook page. Another question from another Shafiq Abu Bakr. Can an LLC or S Corp with 1099 contractors apply for PPP or EIDL? Again, if you have 1099 contractors, you do not qualify for PPP. I will reiterate it. If you have 1099 contractors, you do not qualify for PPP. The individual contractors have to apply for PPP. The business can apply for the economic injury disaster loan. I believe that I'm up to date on all the questions in the chat box. Brother Abdullah, I'll give it back to you to see if you have any questions that have come.
No, we have exhausted the questions. I'm sure that others will come, but we've come to the end of the program. What we would ask, a number of you have requested to get a copy of the presentation. As Mr. Achman indicated, these presentations will be made available. However, for those, a number may not have registered directly. So on the chat, put your email address indicating you want a copy of the presentation, and we will, once it's processed and we process these email addresses, we will forward them to you. Also, I can tell you shortly, for those that you would like to benefit to share from this particular presentation, this presentation has been recorded and will be placed on our YouTube channel for CIOGC. That's www.ciogc.org/taskforce. That will take you to the landing page where we have resources talking about COVID-19, and there is a separate tab for the webinars. We would, so that you can have not only access to the presentation, and as well as replay this video or audio portion of today's presentation. At this time, I would turn the mic over to the chairperson, the chairman of the Council of Islamic Organization, Irshad Khan. Irshad?
Brother Abdullah, one question before Brother Arshad goes.
I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
My apologies. Before you go, Brother Arshad, just one. I know a lot of you are putting your email address. I would humbly request you to actually, instead of putting your email addresses, just go online and register with the link, because that way it's a lot easier getting it from our Google registration page versus copying each individual email from this chat box. So please just register on the link, so that way all the emails come to us directly. Brother Arshad, I'll go ahead and give it back to you. Thank you.
Just to add to that, I'm going to share the registration link one more time in the chat window so that you can easily access it. So please go ahead and register. Giving back to Brother Irshad.
While he's still coming on, I'll just, again, I believe that's all the questions that I have. I just request you to go ahead and just make dua for me and my family, as well as everyone through these difficult times. And that inshallah, we all stay safe. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum from me.
Brother Irshad. Okay. There you, Irshad, you should be unmuted now.
Brother Irshad, can you hear us?
In the meantime, you can start closing, and then if Irshad comes in, then he can talk.
All right.
Okay.
Brother Irshad?
Brother Shafiq, maybe you just go through and just close it out.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think like COGC has some upcoming events coming in. Brother Irshad wanted to talk about that.
I can share that for the members before you leave. There will be, we will continue, CLGC will continue to host informative webinars as you benefited from today. I will refer you to this week, this Wednesday, we will have one about filing unemployment claims. That will be on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Please go to www.clgc.org for further information. As I say, these webinars will be held twice a week, Wednesday evenings and Sunday mornings at 11. So please view our website for further details of COVID-19 related information. And with that, we would once again, on behalf of the the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce and the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago, we welcome and thank you for joining us. And inshallah, assalamu alaikum.